Howdy, and welcome back to Celebrating Vintage Model Kits. Next up, we got a classic, the Aurora Gotha Bomber. It's a quarter scale kit from them. This is the first issue of the kit from 1958. It's kit number 126, part of their World War I series that they were producing in the late 50s, early 60s. And we've got beautiful box art from Joe Catula on this one. So the Gotha, this particular Gotha is a G5. The way you can tell a G5 is the engines are separated from the wing. And it was a heavy bomber used by the Imperial German Air Service during World War I. Built by the Gotha Wagen Fabrik AG in Germany. It's designed by Hans Burkhardt. So the previous model, the G4, had as I mentioned, the engines were down on the wing, and the fuel tanks were in the nacelles themselves. And what was happening is that when the aircraft would have a mishap on landing, crash, whatnot, the fuel would the fuel cell would get ruptured, gasoline would pour onto the hot engine and would burst into flames. And since 75% of the losses were due to accidents, they thought, you know what, it's probably a good idea to maybe move those fuel tanks. So they moved them into the fuselage. So there was a huge tank behind the pilot that took up the space where bomb bay was. So the bombs on the G5 ended up being all suspended from underneath the fuselage and wings, and the tunnel connecting the front part of the cockpit to the rear went away because it was all taken up by fuel in there. And let's see what else. The performance on the G5 did not improve any. By the time the G5 was being made, the quality of products that were being used to produce the aircraft were getting poorer, so the wood was getting worse, it was getting heavier. The fuel that was available for the engines was not as good. So the aircraft actually kind of suffered in performance compared to the G4, but it was a relatively safer aircraft. The other difference on it was the Gotha tunnel, which was an opening on the bottom of the aircraft that they could put a machine gun out the bottom. On the G5, they eliminated this separate gun and tunnel and opened up the whole bottom of the fuselage, had a slot on the top in order for the gunner to fire out from the top without having to change positions, go to the bottom, and use a separate gun. And so those are the main differences between the G4 and the G5. The G5 entered service in August of 1917, and a total of 205 were built. So that's a little background history on the Gotha. So let's take a look at the kit. So we've got, as I said, this great, fantastic artwork on the box cover. On the side, we've got some line drawings of other aircraft that were available from Aurora. A couple of scarce ones, the Lockheed vertical takeoff and the Convair vertical takeoff. There we go. Those are both pretty rare birds. The Lockheed F-90 is also a highly desirable kit. So some good stuff on there. On the opposite side, we've got some of their ships. The Destroy Halford, the Forrestal, the Benyon, and the Saratoga. On the bottom, or on the ends, we've got a repeat of the top artwork and the kit number and the $1.98 suggested retail price. And same thing on this side. So what differentiates this particular one from the later issues is this Parents Magazine logo on here. That was in the first original issue of 1958. And also the rays in the Aurora logo are representative of the earlier produced kits. So we'll open it up here. You can see this is one of the old style boxes with the lithograph that was wrapped and glued onto the box top of a hard box. And this is a pretty mint condition kit, and that it still has the tissue that came inside. It keeps the parts from flopping around. That's pretty cool. And then we have the instructions. So we've got Gotha G5, before assembly instructions, putting the engine together. Pretty sophisticated for a 58 kit with all the pipes, the heads, radiator, little scoop. Starting the fuselage assembly, and there's actually some stuff to go inside the fuselage, which is unusual for this era of kit. Next, we've got showing the attachment of the wings and struts. Here we have a full exploded view of the kit. Ad for Aurora speed dry glue, or paints, I should say. History of the Gothas down here. There's the ad for their glue. Photograph of the assembled kit. And on the back side, giant advertising. So we got helicopters, or whirlybirds, giant bombers, modern day fighters. And over on this end here, I'll get in here, famous tanks. And then across the top here, got a listing of all the kits that were available. So there's your instructions. Pretty nice. And then here we have the decals. They're in pretty decent shape. And on here, it's got a specific serial number on here for the aircraft of GOGV 947/17, and it's got coding of KZ. So doing some research, there was actually an aircraft that was 947/16 and coded KZ, so I think that's probably what they were trying to represent with this kit. And that particular aircraft was with Bosta 16 or Bomber Stoffel 16. They were flying night raids on England. And on the night of the 21st, 22nd of March, 1918, the aircraft did a forced landing in Calais. The pilot was Lieutenant Michael von Korff, and the observer was Lieutenant Eberhard von Zedlitz, and the KZ on the side of the fuselage represented their two last name initials. There was also a gunner on board, Willie Speyer. So the aircraft ended up being captured and given to the Belgian Air Service, who repaired it. It was first flown after being repaired 27 August of 1918, so they could kind of get a feel for the performance of the aircraft. And flew a few more times, and then eventually was scrapped. So this is an actual real aircraft, and there are some photographs of this plane. So let's show those to you here. Okay, so the first thing I think you'll probably notice with this is the color of the plastic. This is just a gorgeous burgundy, almost like a candied color. And it's actually kind of translucent. I don't know how well you can see this in the picture. If you can see through here, see the wing underneath there. So it's a very unique kind of plastic they're using. for this kit. So you'll also notice that you've got molded on markings all across here. There's no interior detail, but there are some parts to build up the interior a bit. And here's the other half, the fuselage. See how that fit looks. Not a lot of connector pins on it, but yeah, not too bad. Man, that plastic's gorgeous. So here's the tunnel that we're talking about. So here's where the rear gunner would be. Here's the cutout where he could put his gun through, and the complete open bottom of the fuselage to be able to fire down at an aircraft that was attacking from below. So here's our fuselage. And then here's the wings. Huge piece of plastic. One piece mold for top and bottom. Do have some ejector pins on here, but they're not too bad. Molded on markings, representation of the fabric covering. And doing some research, it looks like the ailerons were kind of separated a bit from the wing. So if you're going to make this, to really represent the real plane, you probably want to cut this out and separate it a little bit. But you can see this has got a pretty big wingspan. I think it's 19 inches. Big kit. There's your top. And then here's your lower wings. Again, beautiful, beautiful color. And we've got a tree of struts and bomb racks. I think that's part of the instrument panel. There's our tail. Here's our engine nacelles. Nice, pretty. Here's the little base. Came with most of the World War I aircraft. Some sort of little base for the plane to be sitting against instead of a stand. We have another tree with some crew figures, it looks like. Some more struts, lots of struts. Control column. Figures look pretty good too. Then we have some ground crew guys. Vertical tail. And looks like a gas tank that probably went on top of something, or fuel. It's part of the interior. Pilot seat. And then we have a tree of black parts. Wheels, landing gear, it looks like. Exhaust, engine parts. Radiator grills. Bombs, props. And a few other things. I think that's part of the controls. Little bits of stuff here. So that's what the original kit looked like, the original issue of this thing. Yeah, this burgundy plastic is really what stands out on this kit. It's absolutely gorgeous. So, I issued this kit a few more times. There was a 1959 issue, that didn't have the Parents Magazine marking, another 1960 with a slight change in the boxing. And then in 1971, there was a limited run of about 1,000 kits for a hobby dealer by the name of Ross Abear, using this similar boxing as well too. Slight modifications to it, but basically the same one. The kit was that popular that this guy commissioned Aurora to make another run for him. Then in 1972 came the K&B issue. Most of the World War I fighters were reissued under the K&B logo. They were in the square boxes, came with the vacuform base that was the square size of the box. It's also the same time that Aurora Canada put theirs out. Had very different artwork. I believe that the K&B issue was also produced in Canada as well. And then the final issue was 1976. When they did the issue for K&B, they'd gotten rid of the molded on markings. And in the final issue in 1976, not only did they have the removed markings, but they also put a fabric texture onto the surface of the aircraft. And I happen to have one of those kits here. So here's a 76 last issue of the Aurora kit, and you can take a look at the differences on it. So first off, the instruction sheets are very different. Got a photograph of the original plane, history, before starting stuff, and much more simplified instructions, more visual rather than telling you what to do. They do give you some very good rigging instructions here, also for the rudder and elevator controls. And in this issue, they gave you decals for 2 kits, more accurate representation for the KZ bomber, and then one for a different one here. And some painting instructions. Here's what those decals look like. So you can see the KZ here looks very different than the other one. And then they also gave you a sheet for how to do lozenge camouflage on the wings. So that's a nice added bonus. Your black parts were separated in a separate bag. And as you can see, the bright burgundy color is gone and replaced by an olive green. Same mold, but now markings are gone, and you can see there's a rough surface to it. But other than that, it's the same kit. So here's the wings. You see that rough surface they put on there. But other than that, it's identical kit. It looks like maybe you're not getting the ground crew with this because there is no ground base. So they did eliminate that. But everything else appears to be the same. So there you have it. 2 versions of their Gotha. These have proved to be very popular models over the years. I think recently there's been some new Gotha kits that have come out, but for a long time you wanted to build a Gotha, this was about it, especially in 48 scale. So there you have it. So if you built one of these guys, tell us about it in the comment section. If you still got one of these sitting on your shelves, shoot a picture of it and send it in for our next viewer build video. So there you go. All right, so thanks for watching, and have yourself a great rest of your day.